In today's episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, I'm going to be talking to you all about a feeling that I've had about Arsenal since December. And I'm going to be breaking down Arsenal's heartbreaking defeat to PSG in the Champions League semi-final. And maybe putting a bit more of a positive spin on things for you this morning. Let's get started. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. Wherever you are, I hope you are well. It is 6:53 in the morning here in the UK. It is still raw. Last night was less than 12 hours ago, and there's still an air of disappointment around Arsenal right now. And look, I'm not going to tell anyone how they have to feel. You can be sad, you can be frustrated, you can be angry, you can be proud of what we showed over the 2 legs, even if we didn't get it done. But I'm going to try and supply some context today. I'm going to try and lift some spirits, because that's what this channel is about. It is about enjoying our football and looking at Arsenal through an unfiltered lens and trying to. We're not going to pick people apart and take frustration out on anyone. I think we're going to look for the positives in this tie, because God knows we need some positives this season. Every so often I've come on here and been frustrated with Arsenal performances. I can't say that about last night. I can't say to you, even though we lost 2-1 against PSG in the Parc des Princes last night, that I'm frustrated by the performance. And I mentioned in the intro that I've had a feeling about Arsenal since December. And, wins, good results, the Real Madrid tie, the PSV tie, they've taken that feeling away fleetingly. But I think it's sat there for a long, long time. And I'm going to tell you all about that today. First of all, before I do that, I want to welcome everyone who might be listening and joining from Blue Sky. I got a lot of new followers during the game last night. So if you have chosen to click on this this morning, welcome. This is it's a new podcast. Well, it's not even new anymore. I'm approaching 100 episodes. It's new this season, and hopefully you enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, please hit the follow button wherever you get your podcasts from, and you'll get 3 Arsenal podcasts into your feed immediately every single week. Now, to kick us off, I'm going to read a post from Blue Sky, actually, from Lewis Ambrose. Very intelligent guy. Give him a follow if you don't. Lewis posted this at 6 o'clock last night. When Arsenal lost Saka and then Havertz earlier this season, I didn't think we'd play a meaningful game in May. Just hope now, a goal down, we make a proper game of it. Do everything to make the final. And if you can't, make sure PSG know they were in for a scrap to earn that place for themselves. I think we did that last night. I think we gave PSG a scrap. I was speaking to my fiancée before the game, and I was saying, I just hope we go down fighting. I think if we have to go down, then we have to make sure that this is a game. We have to make sure that we have given 100% of ourselves. And look, Champions League semi-finals are not easy. We're going to come on to talk about some of the razor-thin margins that besotted this whole tie, really. Razor-thin margins in the Champions League semi-final. What I didn't want to see is Arsenal go down with a whimper. We've seen that before, right? If you've been an Arsenal fan for pre-Mikel Arteta, we've seen them just fade. Just fade in big moments. I remember so many games where you're thinking, oh, wow, okay, we're doing all right here. We've got a chance. And just disappeared. We shrunk into the shadows. We didn't have that bite. We didn't have that fight. And that feeling that I mentioned, I think last night was a good performance. I think we did enough to win the game. I genuinely believe over the tie we did enough to win the tie, but it just feels like it's not our year. I mean, we'll come on to it in a little bit, but the PSG goal, the first one, a huge deflection, just flying in past David Raya. I actually thought when I first saw it, it was a fantastic finish. It ends up being a massive deflection off Saliba's stomach. So fortunate. And at the other end, we have that Martin Ødegaard volley. Again, we'll come on to it in more detail. for all the life of me, I figured it was in. I was up and off my sofa when he hit it, and Donnarumma somehow he touches it, right? First of all, getting to that ball is a decent effort, but he somehow manages to palm it away. And look, the fine margins have not gone our way over the two legs. I think that's true. Of course, there's scenarios over 180 minutes, including our goal last night, where a bounce or a decision goes for you. But I think on the balance, those things just haven't gone our way. Our big chances have been saved by an inhuman goalkeeper over two legs, and their kind of half chances have been converted off a shin and off a post and off a big deflection. It's just not gone our way, and people will, at times of disappointment, people will always look for something to blame, and who am I to say that that's not the right thing to do? But for me, I do think that this is just some sort of, it's the bit of football that is so maddening, right? Because what will happen now is there will be an inquest into Arsenal, there will be an inquest into Arteta, we'll be called nearly men, we'll get battered for not having a striker and not signing a striker in January. I think that's a whole different discussion, but that's something that people will say. But really, this tie is so razor thin and on the edge. I really do believe a couple of bounces that go our way, things are completely different. And look, people are going to say, oh, that's just excuses. No, it's a reason. I think it's not an excuse, it's a reason. And I remember I did a podcast a little while ago, it might have been the preview pod actually, or something like that, about turning these margins into our favour. Talent turns these margins into your favour, 100%. I really do believe that. And that's not to say the players that we put out last night weren't talented, but when you see PSG lose their main goal threat, their main man up top, and they can bring in Bradley Barcola, who caused us issues all night, and then bring Dembele off the bench, bring Gonzalo Ramos off the bench late on. You see them flush with players. They didn't even use Zaire Emery, who I think is a really good, talented midfielder. They were able to throw on defenders like Lucas Hernandez. We had a better bench last night. I was more excited by it, but I couldn't help but feel, we were missing a number of players in that first leg. And last night, if we have Kai Havertz, that's a different game. I really, really can't help but think that, And when I say talent wins fine margins, Kai Havertz is probably on the end of one of those Bukayo Saka crosses. He probably finishes one of those chances that we get against Donnarumma. You say what you want about Kai Havertz, you can critique him. That's a different question. But with the XG we created and his track record in front of goal this season, or the season that he was able to play, of course, I think he gets us a goal. And if he gets us a goal at the right time, it turns this tie. Even if you just have Gabriel Jesus, he was starting to get on a heater before he did his ACL. You just never know. And they pitched up to the Emirates and pitched up last night, basically fully fit, very close. Kimpembe obviously out, and Dembele had a slight issue last night, but was able to come off the bench. We have pitched up without Gabriel, who's probably one of our players of the season, without a recognised striker. In the first leg, we pitched up without Calafiori. Ben White was there, but not really fit. Jorginho there, but not fit last night, I would imagine. Saka only just getting back to fitness. I don't want to sit here and make excuses, but I am really of that opinion that this game was so close to being Arsenal's, and this whole tie was so close to being Arsenal's. We're going to be analysed basically on the whole result, on the tie, on the fact that we didn't score enough goals. Absolutely, but that is how people who didn't watch the games will analyse it. I think people who watch the games will absolutely kind of say, look, Arsenal have more steps to complete. Of course we do. I'm not denying that any of those things are true. I think we do need to go and sign a striker in the summer. I do think we need to sign a left winger. We need a reliable alternative to Martin Odegaard. All of those things are true. But if you watch that game last night, especially that first 15 minutes of how we played, critiquing the players as individuals, critiquing how Mikel Arteta's done things, I think is not the right way to go. In so many ways, they did everything that they had to do. They really did, across both ties. And I don't know, I'm obviously disappointed. I'm obviously disappointed, but let's zoom out a bit. I guess is probably my major feeling as well right now. Let's zoom out. This is only the third time Arsenal have ever reached a Champions League semi-final. So take it back to the days of Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Wiltord, Vieira, Pires, all these players that we look back on so fondly, and God knows we could do with Thierry Henry right now. He'd probably put a Thierry Henry level player in our team, and we're probably the best team in the world, right? So think of all of those times. That group only did it once, and they did it in 2006. And we talk about fine margins, right? I think this is something that we really forget. In the first leg of that Champions League semi-final, Arsenal won 1-0 at home against Villarreal. After that, in the second leg, we had one attempt on target, and that was our only shot of the game against Villarreal. Plus, they missed a penalty in the 90th minute. Massive Jens Lehmann save. And this is how things can go. That's our previous example of winning a Champions League semi-final. And if you remember that time, the league wasn't going well for us, but things just were falling for us in the Champions League. And we needed, in this tie against Villarreal, we needed a moment to go our way, and God did it. Riquelme was one of the best penalty takers ever. And Jens Lehmann somehow stopped him in that moment. We had one shot. And everyone remembers it really fondly because the result went our way. I promise you, if we put that performance out against PSG last night at a similar level, people would not be particularly happy. Last night, I think we gave a really good showing of ourselves, and things just didn't land for us. Of course, the other time is the Man U one in 2009. We won't talk too much about that, but I guess my point being is, what a fantastic achievement it is to reach the Champions League semi-final. It's only the third time we've done it in our history. That's a fantastic achievement in itself. And people, opposition fans will be like, oh, what medal or what trophy do you get for a semi-final? Block them out, because, frankly, Tottenham or Man U are going to win a trophy this season, whilst coming maybe 17th and 16th. They would trade their team for our team. I promise you that. So we've reached it for the first time for the third time in our history, and we gave a great showing of ourselves. It's Mikel Arteta's first managerial job as well, and again, you look at what you want from your manager, and you want a brilliant plan. We had an absolutely fantastic plan last night. You want a manager to be able to get your people up for it, your coaches, your players, all of the staff, all the fans. Boy, did those players look up for it last night. They really looked like they believed they could do it. You want your manager to be able to make changes in games that help you stabilise, and boy, did he do that in the first leg, didn't he? And people are rightly, well, no, not rightly, they're going to wrongly analyse him on the sense that, okay, he's not won the Champions League semi-final. Arsenal aren't in only their second Champions League final ever. He's failed. But he's done all of those processes that I've just talked about. He's got those right, and he's done it with hardly any players. To be missing a potential player of the season defender in a Champions League semi-final is not the one. To be missing your top goal scorer in a Champions League semi-final is not the one. To be missing the backup to your Champions League to your top goal scorer is not the one. So, look, I'm I guess what I'm trying to say with this whole 14-minute segment is zoom out. Don't get baited into the results-based analysis. Remember the game you watched last night, and remember how Arsenal applied themselves over this two legs. I think you've got to look at the moments. Of course you do, but that's something we can address with talent in the summer. We can address with just sheer squad depth. That will be dealt with. I'm sure of it as players come back. Of course, that will also support that discussion. And those moments didn't go our way, but overall we did a lot of things right. And sometimes football at the very highest level is just like that. PSG are very worthy Champions League finalists. The narrative around them all this season has been they are the most impressive team in Europe. Basically, since that first leg against Liverpool, I think they were okay in the league stages. Not that impressive. Kvaratskhelia has obviously changed things. Dembele coming into form has changed things for them, and they have become a team that looks set upon winning this competition. I do believe they will go on and win this competition. So just remember, don't get drawn into results-based analysis. Remember what you watched. 15 minutes in, I've not really spoken too much about the match, so let's get started on that. I'm going to talk about basically the chances that both teams had in order and how things happen, and then maybe have a little break and talk about some of the tactics Arsenal employed and how different this game could have been. Again, talking about margins, the first 10 minutes, we have 3 magnificent chances, and I thought we started so impeccably well. We looked like a team. For me, we did exactly what I said we needed to do in the preview pod, and we didn't go and overly chase the game. Like, we didn't go rushing in and be cavalier and gung-ho. We built into the game, and when we got our chances, we moved quickly and went to get them. The Rice header in the first 3 minutes, that's one. Ali McCoist, I think, on the commentary in the UK said, I think he has to score. Look, I just think that kind of analysis, it doesn't make sense with headers. Headers are very, very low XG chances when the model takes into account how you've applied the shot. Headers don't get scored that often. I think Rice does pretty well. It's very close to being on target. He's marked by Marquinhos. We, of course, then have the Martinelli flick, cross it in from the left, and he gets a decent contact on it, actually. I don't think Martinelli's at fault there because the ball is coming in at a difficult angle. He gets good contact on it. He gets it on target and forces Donnarumma to make a good instinctual save. But the one that I just could not believe didn't go in, I mentioned it earlier, the Ødegaard volley. I was off my seat. And I thought there was something so special about this moment, because Ødegaard for months has looked like a player with no zip, no power, no drive. And all of a sudden in that moment, it felt like he connected. He really connected and struck through that ball. If you've ever played golf, right, you'll know that feeling when you're really struggling and suddenly you strike one. It felt like Ødegaard had that moment with this volley, and it's a good volley. It's low, it's great connection, it's fast. It's not perfectly in the corner, but where he's striking it from, I wouldn't expect it to be perfectly in the corner. And there's a flood of defenders in the way, an absolute flood. It evades all of them. And the reason I mention that flood is I can't believe, really, that they manage, that Donnarumma manages to get a save off of that, because there's no way he should be able to see it, right? That's what I thought, at least. It felt like he should not be able to see that chance at all. It is a 0.07 XG chance that is elevated to 0.21 XG on target. So that basically means the post-shot quality. So he has a good old go at it. He really gives it a lift. Just looking at the position, like I say, it is nearly bottom corner, not perfectly bottom corner. It is a great strike from Ødegaard, and Donnarumma. That was a moment where I thought, oh my God, he's going to have another one. Donnarumma is going to have another wonderful day, just as he did in the first leg. And if they go on and win this competition, they have him to thank, because he's been brilliant in multiple knockout games now. And look, people talk about, I talk about Kvaratskhelia, Barcola, Doué, Dembele, Mendes, Hakimi, fantastic players. You have to look at the way Donnarumma has played as well, and just kind of say, wow, that's absolutely incredible. Completely different game if that goes in. Before half-time, I think we had 2 more really good chances, and we just didn't have the person in the right spot. So we had 2 crosses from Saka right before half-time. One goes right across, well, both go right across the box. There's one where I think Marino's probably a little bit too deep. I think he's involved in the build-up play, and there's one where Martinelli's a bit static on the centre-back. He's come in, he's pinched inside to try and get a chance, but then he's not active, he's not anticipating that cross, and that was the one where the ball just kind of sailed across and Martinelli is stood still, and you see Saka throw his hands up. He has to be going for that, really. I don't think Martinelli had a fantastic game. He was okay, but he has to be driving towards that ball and driving across the goal to give Saka someone to hit. It's a must. It's an absolute must from Gabriel Martinelli, and that's a bit of a shame. Again, people are going to go, we need a striker to be in that position. We need an Isak, we need a Watkins, whatever. And you might be right, but it's also no guarantee. I promise you that. Sometimes you actually need players to, not your star players, just to kind of go and bumble one in. And that's what Martinelli needed to do. I don't think that this is necessarily a scenario where it's like, if we had a striker, we score that. I think this is something Martinelli really needs to be coached on a little bit more, because it happens a fair few times throughout the season, and I think he needs to gamble a little bit more. Forget signings. I think that is something that needs to happen over the summer. In the second half, we had 2 corners around the 57th minute. The first one, Saka nearly scored from it. It needed a big old Donnarumma punch, and there was a glancing header on the second one. But then on the 63rd minute, Donnarumma broke my heart again. He broke my heart again. Saka from the top edge of the penalty box, whipping shot. One of his classics. It was raking into the top corner. I thought for the life of me, that is it. Fair play to you, Donnarumma. You've done great in the first half, but don't worry, Bukayo Saka's here now. I think it is such a perfect strike, and a wonderful, wonderful moment of quality from Bukayo Saka. But somehow, some way, Donnarumma reaches up one of his giant paws and gets to it. Again, this is a 0.03 XG chance that turns into a 0.47 XG on target. So nearly half the time when Bukayo Saka takes that shot, or when any player, takes that shot, it goes in. And Donnarumma has somehow saved that. And you saw it in Bukayo Saka's reaction. He turned away and couldn't believe it himself. Of course, Bukayo Saka was the player who scored the goal in the end. Long balls was Trossard. He's competing with Marquinhos. Marquinhos tries to dive for a foul. It's the softest foul that I've ever seen, and I think the ref made a terrible decision on the penalty, but he gets this right. And I think he basically had a rocky 20 minutes in the middle of the second half, but overall it was a good performance from the ref. So Trossard's competing for the ball. Marquinhos throws himself to the ground, and Trossard just plays to the whistle, drives forward. He makes quite a strange cross, and we get quite a lucky deflection off the defender that ends up with Saka. He does get round Donnarumma this time, and he scores. You can say what you want about Bukayo Saka. I'm sure there will be people out there, probably fans of other clubs, going, "Oh, where was Saka? He didn't show up again, didn't go and win you the tie." But he gets goals. He gets important goals. He got a goal in the Bernabeu. He got a goal in the Parc des Princes. He scores away goals, actually. He scores in big moments, and that gave us a foothold in the game. He did, of course, then miss a humongous chance, a 0.78 XG chance for Bukayo Saka. That open goal on the 80th minute. The ball is crossed towards him, and unfortunately he skies it. That it can happen. It bounces right in front of him. It's on his weaker foot. He has to score it. I for everything I've spoken about with margins and saying that there's so much context and so many things didn't go our way. I think this is a scenario where we could have done more. So, similar for the Martinelli moment off the Saka cross, we could have done more, and maybe it would have made zero difference. Maybe it goes 2-2, 3-2 on aggregate, and nothing more happens in the game. But it sets up a nervy finish, and you just never know. And in this kind of game, I always think the team that are chasing it will get, a 5-minute period where things are a little bit hairy. We were chasing not just the tie, but the game at that point. Things get a little bit hairy for the team that are leading, and you have to, in that moment, take that. And that's this isn't a critique of Bukayo Saka, especially. I think it's a good chance because it's an open goal, but it's difficult with how it's bouncing, etc., etc. And do I think he's done enough since coming back from injury? Of course I do. I think he's scored some great goals, 3 goals now, and contributed really well considering his fitness levels. But this is the kind of moment that where the where the football gods look down on you and kind of say yes or no. And it didn't go our way, unfortunately. I think he has to score it. If he does score it, the tie is on. And if the way it played out, I think it was a point where, Arsenal players are probably looking at that, going over the bar and going, this is not it. This is not our day, which is a real shame. So, look, we had great chances. Donnarumma was a big part of keeping us out. That one obviously would have set up a grandstand finish. But overall, I thought we attacked well. I did. A lot of people will critique Arsenal for not making enough chances. You kind of long term over a season. But ultimately, for me, I think we out XG'd PSG last night. I'm just going to double check that. Yeah, so FOTMob's got us at 2.91 against PSG's 1.74. Remember, PSG have a penalty in that. So it's a really low chance outcome that we lose this game 2-1 when you look at the expected goals. 19 shots, 4 on target, 4 big chances, 3 big chances missed. I mean, that feels painful. Is our finishing good enough? No, I don't think it is. Are we missing 2 strikers who might change that? Yes, we are. 2 things can be true at once. I think we need to make sure that we strengthen the forward line in the summer. But was the scenario against us in this game? Yeah, I think it was. Okay, I'm going to take a very quick break, and when I come back, we'll talk about PSG's chances, their goals. Could we have done better? Is there anything we could have done? Some of the tactics that we employed, and then the stars and underpars. Hello everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you're like me, you finished watching an Arsenal game and you're already looking for the next bit of Arsenal coverage you can find. If that sounds like you, follow or subscribe to Arsenal Unfiltered on your podcast app of choice right now to make sure you don't miss a single episode from me. I'm here 3 times a week, reviewing matches and covering Arsenal news, and I'm so excited to have you all here as well. Thank you very much. Welcome back to this match review podcast of Arsenal 1, PSG 2. Of course, a disappointing night last night. We've gone through some of the reasons for that earlier in the podcast and had a little bit of a positive, retrospective, philosophical almost look back on some of the moments that changed this for Arsenal and how Arsenal are at the moment, the scenario we're in. We also spoke about Arsenal's chances, and now we're going to talk a little bit about PSG's chances. And of course, I've been very complimentary of Arsenal. PSG was still really good. On the 16th minute, Kvaratskhelia hits the post with that raking, curling shot, and heart in mouth moment that was. And we really did give them some life in the game, I think. For as effective as we were in the press, which I'll talk about in a bit, as effective we were in attack and in kind of controlling the game as well. I think we had the large lion's share of domination away from home, of course. We did have some sloppy moments, and the first one really for me was on the 22nd minute. William Saliba under hits his pass, and Doué gets through. He obviously recovers. Saliba recovers and delays Doué, and it's a tame shot in the end, which gives Raya the chance to save. That was a little bit of a moment where I was quite worried. And then there's a sloppy moment for the free kick goal as well. So Raya obviously fires it out to Rice. And I can't work out if this is a really audacious and maybe overly risky pass from Raya, or is Declan Rice's first touch just terrible? I can't tell. I'll need to see a few more replays, but eventually, Rice gives away the free kick, lunging for the ball. I think it was the wrong decision to lunge for it. And PSG have a free kick, and that's not the sloppiness over, because as that ball comes in, Partey heads the ball straight back out towards Fabian Ruiz. He has to get that out into a wide area for me. Really interesting free kick tactic that PSG employed all night. They had basically a set of players in one line, which was their furthest forward line for free kicks, and those players did nothing. They stood there. They were either offside or just onside, and they didn't go to attack the ball when it was delivered. When the ball was delivered, they kind of actually dropped back, and the players on the second line ran through. So they weren't ever going to be offside, and they were the ones attacking the ball, occupying defenders. With the idea, I think, knowing we're a big side, maybe they're not going to win the first ball, but actually, if they drop the first line of players off, they can pick up second balls and maybe give themselves opportunities to score. And it's exactly what happened here. The ball comes in, Partey heads it out straight to Fabian Ruiz. God bless Gabriel Martinelli. He has gone flying in. just a little bit over exuberantly. It's a wonderful touch from Fabian Ruiz. And when I saw it the first time, I thought, that is an outrageous volley. It turns out it took a humongous deflection. And again, I hate to talk about margins, but this is it. For us, that either kind of deflects out or deflects straight back at the strike. The player who struck it, sorry. So yes, it's a sloppy free kick to give away. Yes, Martinelli maybe can close down a little bit better. Yes, Partey's header is not good. But talk about things not going for you. I mean, Christ. It's still a good strike from Ruiz. He's put plenty on it, but it deflects in, and heartbreaking moment, really. Like I say, I thought it was a fantastic strike at half-time when I saw that it had gone in off a deflection. You just start to think, maybe it's not our year. Maybe it's not our time. And that is a weird oddity of football, that sometimes things are just running for you. They did it for us last season, and some things they're just not. Again, we carried on giving away silly, not meaningless, but unnecessary chances. Barcola had a chance after Miles Lewis-Skelly played a wild ball across the midfield. It was intercepted very, very easily, and PSG broke on us. Barcola ends up with the chance, but Declan Rice covered 89 yards from kind of the PSG half back to our penalty area to make an unreal recovery tackle. And that kind of meant that David Raya was able to save easily. The second goal was, another sloppy pass, and PSG break, and we eventually win it back through Thomas Partey, and he dallies on the ball. The ball ends up with Hakimi, and he whips in a fantastic finish. Not a good night from Thomas Partey. You could argue his header wasn't good enough. You could argue in this moment for the second goal, he really didn't get it right. And of course, he wasn't available for the first leg because of a silly yellow card. Don't want to pin it all on one man, but I do feel his performance in the semi-final in general probably wasn't as at the level of some of the other players, I would say, that showed up for Arsenal. And of course, there was the penalty, which thank God David Raya saved it. It was one of the softest penalties I've ever seen. And if that had been the goal that really did take us out of the tie, I think I'd feel a lot saltier this morning than I do. Never a penalty in a month of Sundays. No one appealed for it. I don't think you can call Lewis Skelly's arm in an unnatural position. I don't think you can. But it's one of those ones that you would never see in the Premier League, but you see them in UEFA all the time. We had one against Inter against Mikel Merino, which I think everyone, even non-Arsenal fans, kind of agreed was a lunacy. Just having arms apparently is a punishable crime in UEFA. It's brushed Miles Lewis-Skelly's hand, and thank God David Raya saves it. I think he does a wonderful job in this moment. You can watch Vitinha, who was the penalty taker. The angle from behind him when he's taking the penalty is a really good angle to watch, because he's staring at David Raya all the time. He's waiting for Raya to go. We've seen Raya in the penalty shootout against Manchester United earlier this year go really early. I think Vitinha's done his homework on that, but David Raya stands very, very still, does not move, does not commit, and Vitinha has to then put it somewhere. He's completed his run-up. He's still looking at the goalkeeper. He just picks a side, and David Raya goes at that point. It's fantastic work from him to stay patient. People are going to look at that and go, it's a really soft penalty, But David Raya deserves a lot of credit because he forced that soft penalty because he knew Vitinha was going to try and do that to him. And that's the game, really. I think tactically we got a number of things really nice. Ali McCoy's picked this out early doors on the commentary I was watching. We nullified Kvaratskhelia for much of this game through Jurrien Timber. I thought Timber was superb, by the way, as an individual, but tactically he was deployed in a slightly different way, and he was very high early doors. It was very, very aggressive from Mikel Arteta to send him that high. And what he did, as Ali McCoy picked out, was he went very high, but he also tucked inside a couple of times, and that meant that Mendes had to go inside to mark him. Otherwise, there would have been a ball inside on for him and on for Arsenal. Sorry, and he occupied Mendes, giving Saka a load of space. And that meant Kvaratskhelia was drawn back and drawn back and drawn back, and he was not enjoying it. I don't think Kvaratskhelia really got any joy. He probably was the worst PSG player of the night because of that. And some of Jurrien Timber's numbers are really, really impressive. He had 8 recoveries of the ball in this game. Really, really good. 4 touches in the opposition box, 9 passes into the final third. So you can see how he was deployed forward quite effectively. He had 4 crosses, completed 2 of them. So he actually did a really, really decent job. He did miss one big chance. I'm trying to think what that was. Maybe one of the headers. And yeah, that was a really interesting tactical development of how we played. I thought the other thing that tactically was so impressive was our press. And I don't think, Arsenal are very good off the ball side. I don't think I've seen us play that effectively with a press for a very, very long time. Mikel Merino makes all the difference. I think Leandro Trossard, bless him, is a good player. He's a good finisher. I don't think he adds anything like what we need in the kind of off the ball scenario in that number 9 role. Kai Havertz is brilliant at it, and Mikel Merino has become brilliant at it. So really, really happy with how Merino and Ødegaard kind of set and executed the press. They went at the perfect times, and then the key thing with the press it's pressing 101. You go as a team. Everyone has to go when the trigger is triggered. When Ødegaard says, everyone has to go. And we've watched many times this year, especially in the Premier League over recent weeks, where I think the Champions League kind of shadow has been playing on players' minds, and that kind of feeling of fatigue, the feeling of why are we here kind of feeling is playing on our players' minds. And you've seen Ødegaard, having to wave at Saka, wave at players like you're not standing in the right place, you're not ready for the press. Almost to say, I can't trigger the press with where you're stood, So you have to go as a team, and I thought we did that fantastically. Merino and Ødegaard did a really good job of forcing PSG to play quicker than they wanted. And when they played quicker than they wanted, they were putting it into areas where they thought their players would win the ball, but we were getting there first. Partey did it a number of times. Timber, Saka, Rice. Those players were forcing the issue. Whenever Martin Ødegaard and Merino went, they were right there. They were right there to win the ball, to make the interception, to recover possession. And I was just really impressed with how we did that. Look, you've got to be impressed with the PSG press as well. They, as I've spoken about, they made us make some silly passes, but we really, really did a good job. And of course, we competed so well. I really do believe that. I think I don't have FB ref up here. Maybe FOTMob has it. I'd love to know the kind of number of tackles that we put in, and the number of kind of recoveries that we made, because I think we snapped into a number of tackles that were really, really impressive. Oh, okay, FOTMob's only saying 5. I think that's really interesting. 6 interceptions though, 8 clearances. I wonder if that's some of what I'm thinking of. I think we really, really pushed in the press and pushed to, win those really key duels, really key moments where it could have been so different if we don't win those. I think it could have been a bit more of a PSG domination, but we had to win our duels behind the press, and I think we did that really, really well. Snapped into some tackles really nastily as well, but not nastily in a bad way, nastily in like I'm getting this ball. Okay, we're coming to the end of normal allotted time, and I do want to do stars and under pars and leave you with a final thought. Star, I think it's pretty obvious for me who that's going to be. It's Jurrien Timber. I thought he was very, very good, executed the tactical plan really well, silenced Kvaratskhelia, proved that he is a really hugely quality, really high quality, I should say, right back at this level. And God, I wish he didn't have an ACL last year. If his ACL injury hadn't happened last year, it could have been so different, couldn't it? And he's been fantastic this year while Ben White's been out. And look, I hope Ben White gets fit again, but I think it will be over the summer. So we have Jurrien Timber, and he's doing a magnificent job, an absolutely magnificent job. Under par, again, I think it's obvious from what I've spoken about already. Thomas Partey just had a game where he did some nice things. He had some nice moments, some nice passes, but 2 really poor moments. One with the header and one with the second goal where he dallied on the ball. Just let us down, I think, in those moments. Not to pick on him, especially in laser in on, he's the reason we didn't get to the Champions League final. But I do think if you're looking for players last night who maybe didn't reach their level, I think those 2 moments for Thomas Partey probably put him in the under par category. I'm going to leave you with a thought now, because I think we've got 3 Premier League games left and they're going to be difficult. They're going to be a drag. We've got to play an already relegated team in Southampton on the final day, and we've got to play Liverpool at Anfield. We've got to play Newcastle. Not teams that we have a particularly good record against, and teams that we have struggled against in a long history of struggling against them, especially at Anfield. And the mood could be quite sour, because there's a very real scenario where we don't make second this year, and we look at this as a complete failure of the year. But I said it at the start, in the first 15 minutes where I spoke more generally about Arsenal. Remember to zoom out at this point. Remember to think of this season as what it is. You know, what it has been and what it is right now is a season of bizarre and unfortunate circumstances for Arsenal, where things have not only not gone our way, it feels like they've actively gone against us in many scenarios. And after 2 or 3 of those add up, you know, and you have moments with bad refereeing decisions, injuries, I think it's been an incredible effort from the players to get up for everything that they've got up for and try in the Champions League and give us moments like the Real Madrid tie, and get us to a 3rd Champions League semi-final ever. With everything that's gone on, and I've spoken about this before, the emotional and physical fatigue we feel as fans watching this season, imagine how the players feel. To get up for that and try and give really good accounts of ourselves on the biggest stage. You know, Arsenal will be criticised today, but I don't think anyone will say we didn't give a good account of ourselves, or that we faded off and didn't try or didn't give everything. Just remember back to those teams of Mustafi and Kolasinac, and, you know, players who didn't look like they wanted to play for Arsenal, didn't look like they were at the club because they loved it, didn't look like they were brought into the message. We don't have those players anymore. We don't have any players like that. And that's, you know, that is some solace to me, I think, in a disappointing year that hasn't gone the way we wanted it to. And it's felt like the stars have aligned against us at times. I think it's really real solace and real comfort to know that our players have given everything. And I think last night they absolutely gave everything that they had and they could. So look, it's not the result we wanted. It's not the season we wanted. But I looked down on that pitch last night and I saw players really fighting for the badge, really fighting to get us into the Champions League final, and thought, if this is how we go down, I'm okay with it. We went down fighting, I think, and that's the main thing. You know, that feeling that I spoke about at the start, the feeling that I've had since December, it's just not our year. I still feel like that, but I don't think that's through any want of trying of the players. I'm going to leave it there then, guys. The next few weeks of podcasting might be quite tough, but I will endeavour to leave a positive spin on all of the games that we have coming up. Maybe kind of look ahead as well, as to what we can do over the summer, and I will make sure that there is a preview and review of every single game for the last 3 games, of course. Let's hope we get a positive result against Liverpool and Newcastle, something to lift us a little bit, and give us a good old fighting chance of still making second. All that's left to say now, guys, is thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I will speak to you very, very soon.